Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me for pricing. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. Today, we have a debut for the channel. This is the first time I have ever been able to inspect and share the GraffStar Grande Date, a watch launched in 2011, part of the Graff luxury watch division created in 2008 by Graff Jewelers, a diamond and jewelry specialist that decided to get into the then burgeoning field of men's mechanical luxury watches. And so it threw real money and effort at this, signing industry veteran Michel Pitalou and launching watches that are highly customized inside and out. Real money was spent and real money was charged. And today, this rare timepiece, one of 50 made in blue ceramic and rose gold, sold in 2012. This represents outstanding pre-owned value and exclusivity. So it is large. It hailed from the bombastic 2000s when bigger was better and biggest was best. And although it is somewhat loud in its way, it's also surprisingly wearable. 45 millimeters is the diameter, but it doesn't wear that way, being only 11.1 millimeters thick and 50.7 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs, because it is well under 51 millimeters from lug to lug. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it wears flat, flush, and easy. You can see that the curvature of the lugs is pretty dramatic, so even if it's right up against the edge of your wrist, it doesn't look like it's hanging over. So you can wear this watch on a wrist of 16 centimeters circumference or larger, and while it is sporty, it's best described as a sporty dress watch. So its sloped case flank, low profile, and compatibility with a tight cuff is admirable. The strap, the watch does come with two. Blue to match, large rectangular scale alligator leather. You can see it has a monotone stitch and a folded edge with calfskin on the bottom. Now this is a Jean Rousseau custom strap. There is another accessory Graff strap with the watch, but we liked the look of the Jean Rousseau and Gator, so we put it on there. JR, OEM supplier to FP Journe de Bethune, is one we often use when we want to color complement a watch, and I think we chose right. It is a high-grade strap for a high-grade watch with a high-grade and surprisingly nuanced clasp. Now you can see Graff's name externally. We have a trigger release system, so you have to press both triggers for it to open. It will not do so inadvertently. Inside, we find more blue inlays and then a sort of geometric scatter designed to reference the diamonds often fitted to Graff products. Now we get further inboard and we find that there's a push button multi-stop micro adjustment that can actually be used to fine-tune the fit when the watch is on the wrist, which is deeply impressive. You can also see that it's designed to tuck the strap in through the buckle, pin it on that little pin, and then when everything closes, there's no need for minder loops externally and no excess length is visible externally, so it's very clean. You can also see that in profile, it's been both polished and media blasted with those blue inserts. There's a tremendous amounts of nuance, intricacy, and attention to detail in the construction of this clasp. You can see there's media blast, there's polish, there's satination, there's the blue contrasting tone, just so many things to shout out. You can also see how there's a little bit of a recess to the case at either end. You see how there's a little bit of a flattening out to allow the strap to move unencumbered, despite the lugs being drilled very close to the case. That moves the pivot centers in, so ergonomically, it wears even narrower across the wrist than the 50.7 millimeter nominal length. Now, the lugs are massive when viewed in profile, but thin when viewed end-on. They're polished, and they contrast nicely with the matte finish of the faceted blue ceramic. And you can see there's a lot of faceting, symbolic of Graff's original métier, which is jewelry and gems. And of course, we had that triangular motif cutaway inside the clasp. You could see that we have a triangular emerald at the top set in a rose gold index. And then we have a faceted crown with a genuine Graff diamond of extraordinary size. If you take a look at the case back, you could see that the case back is also faceted in a way that only becomes visible off-center, not just large facets, but many small crystalline distinctions. I've never seen anything like it. When you view it conventionally, it's almost completely unobtrusive. You wouldn't even know what's coming until you start to take it off axis, and then you can see that it does have a little bit of a peaked camber to it. Really interesting stuff. Now the dial has a scatter pattern. You can see it's almost like I guess you could say the leaf of a tree, but again, it's designed to represent the sparkle and radiant twinkle of a cut gem. We have rose gold indices, rose gold hands, a rose gold frame for the date, a double-digit date, small seconds, a power reserve indicator up to 50 hours. And so we do have a couple of features that are handy here. So we've got a stop seconds function, stops the seconds, so you can set the watch to a reference time. We have Dauphine-style hands that are rose gold and faceted for better contrast against the muted and matted dial base. If you look at the indices themselves, you can see they're actually sloped. They've got a little bit of an inclined plane profile, both on their top and their back. And if you look at them from side to side, they even taper a little bit from their flanks up to their peaks. So there's a lot of nuance there. We have a gold track for the power reserve. The watch is manual wind, 50 hours of power reserve. There is a double-digit date, and it has a quick set that's geared relatively high, so it sets extremely quickly. We'll call this a very quick set, the first very quick set I've encountered. The bezel, as you can see, is faceted, a reference to gems, yes, but also other successful faceted bezel designs in the watch industry. Remember, Graff was interested in breaking into the watch space, at least the men's mechanical space, back in the late 2000s. Now, you can see how there really is a little bit of a depth to the dial because of that scatter motif. And then we flip everything over, and we have that fastening again. We've got media blasted bridges, and then this sort of matrix design again. You're supposed to think of gems. When I first saw this, my initial instinct was, oh, it's some sort of 6497, but it's not really. It's smaller in diameter. The train is remarkably different. The beat rate at 4 hertz is all wrong. And if you look at the crown release, you can see that it's actually a spring-loaded push button rather than the screw, the retaining screw conventionally used on a 6497, all of which means there's just too many changes here for this to have ever been a 6497 or 98, especially the change of the train, because redesigning a train means there's no point in using the base geometry of the Unitas, and even great watchmakers like Pascal Coyon, David Walter, Ludovic Balois, Keaton Myrick, Richard Habring, they used the train designs of existing Omega Unitas, Valjoux, sometimes Peso movements, because train design is where watchmaking goes from craft knowledge to actual engineering, where you need theory and calculations, and you can't just fabricate the parts using traditional skills. So this had to be something else. The longer I looked, the more I realized I know exactly what this is. This is a non-chrono manual wind adaptation of a Valjoux 7750. So it's large, just over 30 millimeters to fit the case back. The click, the case clamp screws, the location of the pivot jewels, the geometry of the train, the crown release, all of that is correct. That is what I'm looking at here, and that is what we are looking at. But I can guarantee you that there is not one Valjoux piece on this movement. Graff was honest at the time, saying that it was using a supplier to create a customized movement for the GraffStar Grande Date. And of course, this would have been custom made by a supplier, and they're open about that, being a jeweler first and foremost. So you could see, technically speaking, manual wind, power reserve indicator, big date with quick set, stop seconds, 4 hertz beat rate. It is 18 joules. They call this the Calibre 01, and it features a combination of a unique regulator and unique bridge design with a combination of frosting and then character lines. But you can see this is not as simple as media blasting the surface. The edge is conventionally media blasted. We have this rough texture in between the matrix, and you can see that even the lines themselves aren't perfectly straight. We have solarization of the crown wheel core. We have both polished and blued elements, and I really like those fired blued screws. You could see that there is solarization on the ratchet wheel, and then that matrix cut, another reference to the diamonds for which Graff is famous. You could see that, again, inside the clasp. You could see the motif on the dial, and then you could see it on the case back. This watch is simply full of nods and winks and very cool for it. The winding action is excellent. You can see that the click is sort of a hybrid of a click and a click spring all in one. And then it's a single barrel. The bridges and plates below are blackened, and then the regulator is mirror polished, which I deeply appreciate. You can see an eccentric screw is used for fine tuning. This is just a really cool watch, and something so unique that in 10 years, it's the first one I've encountered. Although the model is no longer made, Graff is still very much around, so absolutely no problem getting this serviced. Case parts, service, warranty work on a service, Graff is still very much a going concern, so you can really buy this unique and discontinued watch pretty much without concern. This watch is full of neat ideas. It's full box, full paper, and I guarantee you, you will never see another one. With a case mostly made of ceramic, it can even dodge some scratches. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And while it is sporty, one last piece of advice: 30 meters water resistant, so this is a surface sporty watch rather than a subsurface sporty watch. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.